The warning lights came too late. Captain Marcus Chen barely had time to reach for the emergency beacon before the electromagnetic pulse hit his cargo hauler like a hammer. Every system went dark. The engines died. The lights flickered once and surrendered to blackness. In the sudden silence of dead machinery, Marcus could hear only his own breathing and the distant creaking of the hull. He had been hauling medical supplies through the Viridian sector, a routine run he had made 100 times before. The route was safe, well-patrolled, and boring. That was exactly how Marcus liked it. At 53 years old, he had spent 30 years moving cargo across the galaxy. He had survived 2 ship malfunctions, 1 asteroid collision and a rather embarrassing incident involving expired rations and 3 days in a medical bay. He was not a hero. He was not a soldier. He was just a man who moved boxes from one place to another and tried to get home to his daughter on Earth every few months. The secondary lights flickered on, running on backup power. Marcus checked his suit seals out of habit even though the hull integrity was still good. Through the forward viewport he could see them approaching. 3 ships, angular and dark, with the distinctive red markings of the Kethric Syndicate painted across their hulls. His stomach dropped. Everyone in this sector knew about the Syndicate. They were criminals, slavers, and pirates who controlled 12-star systems through fear and violence. They operated in the spaces between legitimate government control, where the Galactic Council's authority was weak, and local defense forces were understaffed. Most cargo haulers paid protection money or avoided Syndicate territory altogether. Marcus had always avoided it. He was in a safe zone, or at least it was supposed to be safe. The lead ship moved closer, and Marcus watched as a docking tube extended toward his hull. He considered resisting, but what could he do? His ship was dead. He had no weapons beyond a small pistol locked in his cabin safe, and that would be useless against armed boarding parties. The Syndicate did not have a reputation for accepting surrender gracefully, but they also did not usually kill people who cooperated. The docking tube connected with a heavy clang that echoed through the ship. Marcus stood up from his pilot chair and straightened his flight suit. If these were pirates, they would take his cargo and maybe rough him up a bit. He could survive that. He had insurance. The medical supplies would be replaced. He would file a report with the council and move on with his life. The airlock cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. 6 figures stepped through, all wearing combat armor and carrying weapons that looked far too military for common pirates. They were Kethric, a species that resembled Earth's lizards if lizards stood 7 feet tall and had 4 arms. Their leader, identified by the gold trim on his armor, pointed a weapon directly at Marcus's chest. "Captain Marcus Chen," the leader said in heavily accented Galactic Common. "You will come with us." Marcus raised his hand slowly. "Look, take whatever you want. The cargo is medical supplies, mostly antibiotics and surgical equipment. It is worth maybe 30,000 credits. The ship is insured. Just take it and let me go." The leader made a sound that might have been laughter. "We do not want your cargo, human. We want you." That was when Marcus realized this was not a normal pirate raid. They hauled him through the docking tube without ceremony. His hands were bound with electronic restraints that buzzed uncomfortably against his wrists. They took his communicator, his personal data pad, and even his lucky coin, the one his daughter had given him before his first cargo run. They stripped his ship of anything valuable, and then, to his horror, they set charges. "Wait," Marcus said, his voice rising. "You said you wanted me, not the ship. Why destroy it?" The leader looked at him with cold, reptilian eyes. "No evidence. No witnesses, no trail. The galaxy will think you disappeared in an accident. Engine failure, perhaps. These things happen in space." Marcus watched through a viewport as his cargo hauler, the ship he had owned for 15 years, exploded in a brief flash of light and debris. 30 years of his life gone in an instant. The medical supplies that were supposed to save lives on a colony world, scattered across the vacuum. Everything he owned except the clothes on his back destroyed. The Syndicate ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, and Marcus was dragged to a holding cell deep in the vessel's interior. The cell was small, maybe 3 meters by 3 meters, with a metal bench bolted to one wall and a sanitation unit in the corner. The walls were bare metal, cold to the touch. A single light panel in the ceiling provided harsh white illumination that never dimmed. He sat on the bench and tried to think. Why would the Syndicate want him specifically? He was nobody important, just a cargo hauler. He did not have rich family members. He did not have access to corporate secrets or government information. His bank account held maybe 50,000 credits, enough to pay for his daughter's university and keep him comfortable between jobs, but nothing worth a kidnapping, unless this was not about him at all. The thought hit him like cold water. This was about Earth. The syndicate was going to ransom him. They would demand money from the Terran government, probably a huge amount, and they would threaten to kill him if Earth did not pay. It was a classic hostage situation, the kind that happened occasionally throughout the galaxy. The Altarians had paid ransom for one of their diplomats just 3 years ago. The Vryn Collective paid out regularly to keep their merchant fleet safe from pirates, but Earth was different. Marcus had served 4 years in the Solar Defense Force when he was younger. Before he became a civilian hauler, he had never seen combat, had spent most of his time maintaining supply lines and learning logistics, but he had learned about Earth's policies. He had sat through the briefings. He knew what Protocol Nightfall meant, even if most humans had forgotten it existed. Earth did not negotiate with hostage takers. Earth did not pay ransoms. Earth erased threats. He tried to tell himself he was wrong. That was old policy from the early days of human space exploration, back when humanity was still finding its place in the galaxy. Surely the government had changed. Surely they would be reasonable. Surely they would not risk a war over one unimportant cargo hauler. But deep down, Marcus knew the truth. The syndicate had made a terrible mistake. The journey took 3 days. Marcus was fed twice a day, tasteless nutrient paste that kept him alive but did nothing for morale. Guards came by every few hours to check on him, but they did not speak. He tried asking questions, but they ignored him. He was cargo now, a product to be traded, and cargo did not need conversation. On the 3rd day, the ship dropped out of FTL and docked with something much larger. Marcus felt the docking clamps engage and heard the deep vibration of a massive station systems humming through the walls. They moved him again, this time through corridors that spoke of serious money and serious power. The station was not some makeshift pirate base. This was a fortress with heavy blast doors, automated defense turrets, and shield generators that hummed with barely contained energy. They brought him to a large chamber that looked like a throne room from an ancient Earth story. The walls were decorated with trophies from 100 different species, weapons and armor and flags taken from defeated enemies. At the far end of the room, sitting on a raised platform, was Overlord Threx. Marcus had heard of Threx. Everyone in this part of the galaxy had heard of Threx. He was the leader of the Kethric Syndicate, a criminal who had built an empire on suffering and fear. He was 8 feet tall. His scales were a deep black that seemed to absorb light, and his forearms each ended in claws that could tear through metal. He wore armor decorated with precious metals and gems looted from 1,000 raids. Threx looked down at Marcus with eyes that showed no emotion except mild curiosity. "The human," Threx said, his voice deep and resonant. "Captain Marcus Chen, age 53, 1 daughter, attending university on Earth. Former military logistics officer, now independent cargo hauler. Net worth approximately 50,000 credits. No political connections. No corporate ties. No special skills. Completely unremarkable in every way." Marcus said nothing. His mouth was dry. "Do you know why you are here?" Threx asked. "You are going to ransom me," Marcus said quietly. Threx laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. "Very good, yes. We have sent our demands to Earth through official Galactic Council channels. 500 million credits and exclusive mining rights to 3 of your colony worlds. Very reasonable, considering how much humans value their own people." "They will not pay," Marcus said. Threx leaned forward. "Oh, they will pay. We have studied your species extensively. We know how you operate. You are traders, negotiators, and diplomats. You avoid conflict whenever possible. You will negotiate. You will reduce our demands to something more manageable, and you will pay. This is how civilized species handle these situations." Marcus looked up at the crime lord and felt a wave of something between pity and terror. "You do not understand humans at all." "I understand economics," Threx replied. "Your government will do the math. 500 million credits is expensive, but it is cheaper than a war. 3 mining colonies are valuable, but your species controls dozens of worlds. They will pay because it is the logical choice. They have 30 standard days to comply." They dragged Marcus to his new cell, this one even smaller than the last. It had a narrow bed, a toilet, and nothing else. A camera watched him from the corner, its red light blinking steadily. He sat on the bed and put his head in his hands. 30 days. In 30 days, the syndicate would realize Earth was not going to pay. They would realize they had miscalculated. And then they would realize what was coming. Marcus had tried to warn them, but criminals who built empires on violence did not listen to warnings from their victims. Threx thought he understood humanity because he had read reports and studied economic data. He thought humans were merchants and traders who calculated every decision based on profit and loss. He did not understand that humans calculated differently. Every species in the galaxy had their own approach to hostage situations. The Altarians negotiated because they valued every individual life and believed in redemption. The Vryn paid quickly because they were wealthy and viewed it as a simple transaction. The Centauri sent lawyers and argued for years because they loved legal battles more than they valued time. Humans had a different approach, one forged in Earth's bloody history. They did not pay ransoms because paying encouraged more hostage-taking. They did not negotiate because negotiations showed weakness. Instead, they eliminated the threat so completely, so overwhelmingly, that no one would ever try again. Marcus knew what was coming. He had seen the contingency plans during his military service. He had heard the stories from older veterans about the one time Earth had activated Protocol Nightfall during the colony wars. An entire pirate fleet had captured a civilian transport with 300 humans aboard. Earth's response had been to send the full Solar Defense Fleet, a military force that the galaxy barely knew existed. They had destroyed the pirates, every ship, every base, and every known associate. It had taken 4 days. No survivors. The galaxy had called it excessive. Earth had called it necessary. That was 70 years ago, and no one had taken a human hostage since. Until now. Marcus lay down on the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. He thought about his daughter, Sarah, who would be starting her final year of university. She wanted to be a doctor, following in her mother's footsteps. His wife had died 10 years ago, cancer, and Sarah was all he had left. He wondered if he would ever see her again. He wondered how many people would die because the syndicate had been stupid enough to take one unimportant cargo hauler hostage. The days began to pass in uncomfortable sameness. Marcus was fed, monitored, and ignored. Sometimes guards would come and move him to another room where cameras recorded messages that would be sent to Earth. They made him read statements about his treatment and his health. They made him beg for his government to pay the ransom. Marcus read the words they gave him, but his heart was not in it. He knew Earth would not respond. Not yet. On the 10th day, Threx visited his cell. The crime lord had to duck to fit through the doorway, his massive frame filling the small space. "Your government has not responded to our messages," Threx said, his tone still confident but with an edge of annoyance. "This is part of their negotiating strategy, yes? They want us to think they do not care to lower our price. It is clever, but it will not work. We are patient." Marcus looked up from his bed. "Let me go, please. You can still walk away from this." Threx made that grinding laugh again. "Walk away? From 500 million credits? I think not, human. Your government will pay. They always do. Every species pays." "Earth is not every species," Marcus said quietly. "No," Threx agreed. "You are weaker than most. You have been in the Galactic Council for 200 years and have never once engaged in military action. You are merchants and engineers, nothing more. This makes you predictable." Marcus closed his eyes. "You really do not understand." "I understand perfectly," Threx said. "In 20 days, if we have not received payment, we will increase the pressure. We will hurt you, just enough to prove we are serious. We will send the recordings to Earth. They will pay. They have no choice." The crime lord left and Marcus was alone again. He tried to sleep, but sleep did not come easily. Instead, he lay in the darkness and counted down the days. He thought about Sarah, about his destroyed ship, about the medical supplies that never reached their destination. He thought about the syndicate and all the people they had hurt over the years. Most of all, he thought about what was coming, because Earth was not ignoring the syndicate's demands. Earth was preparing. Somewhere out there, in the vast darkness of space, human ships were moving. Orders were being given. Weapons were being loaded. The Solar Defense Force was waking up from its long sleep. And when it arrived, there would be no negotiations, no mercy, and no survivors. Marcus knew he should feel afraid. But instead, he felt something else. Sadness, maybe. Regret. Because he knew that what was coming was not really about saving him. It was about sending a message that would echo across the galaxy for generations. You do not touch humanity. Not even one of them. Not ever. The price for taking Marcus Chen hostage would be measured in ash and empty void where the Syndicate's empire once stood. It would be measured in destroyed stations and shattered fleets and burning worlds. It would be a price so high that no species would ever dare to take another human hostage again. Marcus pulled the thin blanket over himself and stared at the camera's blinking red light. I tried to warn you, he whispered to the empty cell. I really did. The camera recorded everything, but no one was listening. Ambassador Kiresh of the Altarian Concordat had served on the Galactic Council for 47 years. In that time, she had witnessed countless crises, mediated hundreds of disputes, and learned to read the subtle currents of galactic politics as easily as breathing. She prided herself on understanding every member species, their cultures, their values, and their predictable responses to various situations. But right now, standing in the council chambers on Unity Station, she was confused. Has anyone received a response from Earth? She asked the assembled representatives. The Vryn delegate, a crystalline being that communicated through light pulses, flashed negative. The Centauri representative, insectoid and methodical, clicked a firm no. The dozen other species present all indicated the same thing. Earth had gone silent. It has been 10 days since the Ketheric Syndicate sent their ransom demand, Koresh continued. This is highly unusual. The humans always respond to diplomatic communications within 48 hours. Always. It is one of their most reliable qualities. Perhaps they are negotiating privately, suggested the Vryn delegate. Hostage situations are delicate. They may not wish to conduct diplomacy in public forums. Kiresh had considered that possibility, but it did not feel right. She had tried to reach Earth's Council representative, Ambassador James Okafor, through every available channel. His office did not respond. His personal communicator went to an automated message. Even informal back channels, the kind that always worked for urgent matters, returned nothing but silence. More disturbing were the other reports coming in. I have received word from our merchant fleet, Koresh said carefully. Human cargo ships have disappeared from the major trade routes. Ships that were scheduled to dock at our stations never arrived. Independent human traders who operate in our space have departed without explanation. Has anyone else noticed this? Around the chamber, representatives began to murmur and consult their own data. The Centauri delegate's antennae twitched rapidly, a sign of agitation. Our shipping manifests show the same pattern, the Centauri confirmed. 17 human-operated vessels were scheduled to arrive at our ports over the last 10 days. None appeared. No communications. No explanations. We assumed mechanical failures or route changes, but 17 simultaneous changes is statistically improbable. The Vryn delegate pulsed a deep blue, indicating concern. Our intelligence services report that human colony worlds have ceased responding to routine communications. Not just government channels, everything, tourist information, trade inquiries. Even civilian social networks that connect different species have gone quiet on the human side. Koresh felt a cold sensation in her chest. Something was happening, something large, and the Council was completely blind to it. We should send an investigation team to Earth, she suggested. If there is some kind of communications failure or internal crisis, we should offer assistance. Agreed, said the Centauri. I will petition the Council for an emergency session. That session took place 6 hours later, with full attendance from all 43 member species. The Council chamber was designed to accommodate the vast diversity of galactic life, with sections for water breathers, methane breathers, and even species that existed partially in other dimensions. It was a monument to cooperation and unity, built over centuries of difficult diplomatic work. Today, it felt empty without the humans. The Council chair, a wise and ancient being from a species so old they had forgotten their original name, called the session to order. We are here to address the situation involving the human captain Marcus Chen and the Ketheric Syndicate's ransom demand, the chair announced. More pressingly, we are here to address Earth's concerning silence. Ambassador Koresh, please present your findings. Koresh stood and activated a holographic display. It showed the trade routes of known space with human traffic marked in blue. Over the last 10 days, the blue lines had vanished one by one until the display showed almost nothing. Human ships have withdrawn from galactic commerce, she explained. We estimate that over 90% of human civilian traffic has ceased. We have lost contact with human colony worlds. Earth's government is not responding to any diplomatic communications. We do not know why. Could this be related to the hostage situation? Asked a delegate from the far side of the chamber. It seems likely, Koresh admitted, but we have no confirmation. The syndicate reports that Earth has not responded to their demands either. They sent several follow-up messages, all ignored. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates suggested that Earth was experiencing an internal political crisis. Others worried about a plague or natural disaster that might have disrupted their communications. A few suggested that humanity might have simply decided to withdraw from the Galactic Council entirely. No one suggested the truth, because the truth was unthinkable. Far from Unity Station, in the deep darkness between stars, the Terran Warfleet was gathering. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the HTMS Retribution, flagship of the Solar Defense Force, and watched as ship after ship dropped out of FTL and joined the formation. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and dreadnoughts, each one a masterpiece of human military engineering. Ships that the galaxy thought were outdated or few in number, ships that humanity had quietly built and maintained for 200 years just in case. The fleet now numbered 3,000 vessels, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Every ship was crewed and ready. Every weapon system had been tested and armed. Every captain knew their orders. Okonkwo was 61 years old, a career military officer who had spent 40 years in the Solar Defense Force. She had never seen combat, had never fired a weapon in anger, had spent her entire career training and preparing for a war that never came. She had started to think it never would. Then Marcus Chen was taken. Fleet status report, she said to her operations officer. All vessels present and accounted for, Admiral. We have 3,000 ships in formation. Total crew complement is 1.2 million. All systems green. All ships report ready for combat operations. And the civilian evacuation? Complete. All human civilian vessels have been recalled from foreign space. All human colonies have implemented lockdown protocols. All human citizens in foreign territory have been advised to evacuate or find secure locations. Our people are as safe as we can make them. Okonkwo nodded. That had been the first priority, making sure that no other humans would be taken hostage, that no human would be caught in the crossfire of what was coming. It had taken 10 days to pull everyone back, to empty the trade routes and close the borders. 10 days of silence while the galaxy wondered what was happening. Now they would find out. Communications. Send a message to Unity Station. Encrypt it with Council security protocols. Address it to the full Council membership. Ready, Admiral. Okonkwo took a breath. This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy for generations. She chose her words carefully. Attention, Galactic Council. This is Admiral Sarah Okonkwo, commander of the Terran Warfleet. We are coming for our citizen, Captain Marcus Chen. All species are advised to evacuate the following sectors immediately. She read off 47 sector designations, a massive chunk of space that encompassed all of Syndicate territory and everything surrounding it. You have 48 hours to comply. Any vessels remaining in the designated sectors after that time will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. This is not a negotiation. This is a warning. Earth out. The message was sent, traveling through the galactic communications network at faster than light speeds. In minutes, it would reach Unity Station. In hours, every government in the galaxy would know. Helm, plot a course to the Kethric home system. Maximum military speed. We jump in 30 minutes. Yes, Admiral. Okonkwo turned to her tactical officer. Are the planet crackers armed? Yes, ma'am. All 12 vessels carrying planetary bombardment weapons are ready. The relativistic kill vehicles are loaded. The Star Killer is standing by, though I hope we do not need it. So do I, Okonkwo said quietly. But we will use whatever is necessary. Our orders are clear. We retrieve Captain Chen. We eliminate the Syndicate completely. The tactical officer hesitated. Ma'am, the Syndicate controls 47 sectors. They have over 200 military vessels. They have billions of people under their control. Are we really going to destroy them? Okonkwo finished. Yes, every military asset, every armed station, every stronghold. We will give civilians time to evacuate. but the syndicate itself will cease to exist. Those are our orders directly from the Prime Minister and approved by the full Terran Senate. This is Protocol Nightfall. Around the bridge, officers worked in silence. Some looked uncomfortable. Some looked determined. All of them did their jobs. Okonkwo understood their feelings. This was not glory. This was not heroism. This was extermination, pure and simple. But it was also necessary. Humanity had learned through its long and bloody history that some lessons had to be taught in fire and ash. You could not reason with slavers and kidnappers. You could not negotiate with criminals who saw kindness as weakness. You could only make them cease to exist. 30 seconds to jump, the helm officer announced. Okonkwo sat in her command chair and watched the countdown. 3,000 ships. 1 hostage. Some species would say it was insane that no single life was worth this much destruction. But those species did not understand humanity. Humans were not calculating the value of Marcus Chen against the cost of war. They were calculating the value of every human who would never be taken hostage after today. Jump! The fleet vanished into FTL, leaving empty space behind. Back on Unity Station, chaos erupted. Ambassador Koresh listened to the human message 3 times, unable to believe what she was hearing. 47 sectors. Military fleet. Not a negotiation. They are going to war, the Centauri delegate said, his voice hollow with shock. Over 1 hostage. 1 single individual. They are going to start a galactic war. We must stop them, another delegate shouted. We must send peacekeepers. We must negotiate. With who? Koresh asked quietly. The humans are not answering our calls. The Syndicate is a criminal organization that operates outside Council authority. What exactly are we supposed to do? The Council chamber descended into argument. Some species demanded that Earth be sanctioned immediately. Others insisted that the Syndicate was the real enemy and that the Council should support human military action. A few suggested evacuating the designated sectors as the humans had ordered. While they argued, the first reports came in. Human ships had appeared at the edge of Syndicate space. The Kethric Syndicate, confident in their military strength, had sent a response fleet of 200 vessels to intercept them. It was a strong force, well-armed and experienced in combat. The Syndicate had been fighting and winning battles for generations. The battle lasted 11 minutes. The reports that reached Unity Station were fragmentary and confused. Witnesses spoke of weapons they had never seen before, of human ships moving faster than should be possible, of defensive shields that seemed to absorb unlimited damage. The Syndicate fleet had fought bravely, but bravery meant nothing against overwhelming technological superiority. Not a single Syndicate ship survived, 200 vessels destroyed, thousands of Kethric warriors dead. The entire engagement had been so one-sided that some observers thought they had hallucinated the battle. By the ancestors, Koresh whispered. What have the humans been building? The Vryn delegate pulsed a bright, fearful yellow. We thought we knew them. We thought they were merchants and engineers. We thought they were peaceful. They are peaceful, Koresh said softly, until you take one of them. Then they become this. More reports flooded in. Human ships were moving through Syndicate space in organized formations, targeting military and industrial assets with frightening precision. They were not attacking randomly. They were not killing indiscriminately. They were methodically dismantling the Syndicate's ability to make war. Shipyards were destroyed. Weapons factories were obliterated. Military installations were reduced to rubble. Every target was given 30 minutes warning to evacuate civilians before the bombardment began. The humans were not monsters. They were not committing genocide. They were erasing an empire. On Kethric Prime, deep in the heart of Syndicate territory, Overlord Threx finally understood his mistake. He sat in his command center watching reports of the human fleet's approach. His advisors were screaming, panicking, suggesting strategies that all sounded like different flavors of suicide. His fleet was gone. His defenses were crumbling. The humans were coming, and they were not coming to negotiate. Send a message to Earth, Threx ordered. Tell them we surrender. Tell them they can have the human back. Tell them we made a mistake. We have been sending messages for 6 hours, his communications officer replied. They are not responding. They are just destroying everything in their path. Threx felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. Real, cold, primal fear. He had built his empire on the principle that violence could solve any problem. He had crushed rivals, destroyed enemies, and terrorized populations into submission. He was the apex predator of this region of space, the being that others feared. Now he understood what it felt like to be prey. "Prepare my personal dreadnought," he said. "Load it with everything valuable. We are leaving." "Where will we go?" an advisor asked. "Anywhere the humans are not," Threx replied. In his cell, Marcus Chen sat on his narrow bed and listened to the sounds of panic echoing through the station. Guards ran past his door. Alarms blared. Someone was screaming orders in Ketheric language. Marcus knew what the sounds meant. Earth had arrived. He stood and walked to the door of his cell. It was still locked, still guarded, but the guard outside looked terrified. Marcus could see it in the way the Ketheric scales had paled, the way his weapon trembled in his hands. "You should run," Marcus said through the small window in the door. "Leave the station. Get as far away as you can." The guard stared at him. "Your people are monsters." "No," Marcus said sadly. "We are just very, very serious about protecting our own. I tried to warn you. I tried to warn Threx. None of you would listen." The guard fled, leaving his post, abandoning his duty in favor of survival. Marcus sat back down on his bed and waited. He did not have to wait long. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at precisely 0600 hours Galactic Standard Time. 3,000 warships appeared in the Ketheric home system. Like ghosts materializing from the void, they did not come in peace and they did not come to talk. Admiral Okonkwo watched the tactical display as her fleet assumed attack formation. The Ketheric home system was heavily fortified, with defense platforms, minefields, and automated weapons satellites protecting the 3 inhabited planets. On paper, it looked impregnable. The Syndicate had spent generations building these defenses, certain that no enemy would dare to attack them at home. But the Syndicate had never faced humanity at war. "All ships report ready, Admiral," her operations officer said. "Weapons hot. Shields at maximum. All fighter wings prepared for launch. Commence Operation Ashfall," Okonkwo ordered. "First wave, eliminate the orbital defenses. Second wave, target the military installations on the surface. Third wave, stand by for ground assault if needed. Rules of engagement remain in effect. 30-minute warning for civilian evacuation. No strikes on residential areas. No chemical or biological weapons. This is a precision operation." "Acknowledged, Admiral." The first wave of human ships moved forward, and the Ketheric defense systems opened fire. Plasma bolts, missiles, and directed energy weapons lit up space in a brilliant display of destructive power. It was impressive. It was overwhelming. It was completely ineffective. Human shield technology had advanced far beyond what the galaxy knew. While other species had focused on trade and diplomacy for 200 years, humanity had been quietly preparing for war. They had studied every conflict and recorded history, analyzed every weapon system and developed countermeasures for threats that did not even exist yet. The Syndicate's weapons splashed harmlessly against energy barriers that bent physics itself. Then humanity returned. Fire. The difference was immediate and terrible. Human weapons, refined and perfected over centuries of theoretical development, tore through Ketheric shields as if they were paper. Defense platforms exploded in brilliant flashes. Weapons satellites disintegrated into clouds of debris. The mighty fortress that had protected the Ketheric home system for generations fell in less than an hour. On the surface of Ketheric Prime, alarms blared in every city. The civilian population, numbering in the billions, stared up at the sky and watched their defenses die. They had been told their military was invincible. They had been told no enemy could reach them. They had been told wrong. Human ships moved into low orbit, positioning themselves over military bases, weapons factories, and government installations. Then they began broadcasting on all frequencies in every known language, including Ketheric. "Attention, population of Ketheric Prime. This is the Terran Warfleet. The following military installations will be destroyed in 30 minutes. All civilians in the designated zones must evacuate immediately. We repeat, you have 30 minutes to evacuate. This is your only warning," panic erupted. Millions of Ketheric civilians fled from military zones, clogging the roads and transit systems. Some believed the warning. Others thought it was a trick, a way to spread chaos. But enough believed it that the exodus began. True to their word, exactly 30 minutes later, the bombardment commenced. Precision strikes from orbit destroyed military bases with surgical accuracy. Weapons factories were reduced to smoking craters. Command bunkers were vaporized. The Syndicate's military infrastructure, built over generations, was erased in a matter of hours. And through it all, the human fleet avoided civilian casualties with almost obsessive care. This was not genocide. This was not random destruction. This was calculated, methodical elimination of military capability. But it was still terrifying. In orbit around the second planet, a Syndicate battle station opened fire on human ships. It was a massive installation, home to 50,000 military personnel, and armed with enough firepower to level a continent. The station's commander, a veteran warrior named Krex, refused to surrender. "We are Ketheric," he broadcast to his crew. "We do not yield. We do not run. We fight until death." His crew, loyal and brave, cheered and returned to their stations. The human response was swift. A single ship, the destroyer HTMS Relentless, broke from formation and approached the battle station. It was tiny compared to the massive Ketheric installation, like a child facing an adult. The battle station opened fire with everything it had. The human destroyer's shields held. Then the Relentless fired a single shot. The weapon was something new, something the galaxy had never seen. It was called a disruption lance, and it worked by creating a localized collapse in the fundamental forces that held matter together. The beam hit the battle station's power core, and for a brief instant, the strong nuclear force stopped functioning in a sphere 50 meters wide. The power core, unable to hold itself together, released all of its energy at once. The battle station exploded with the force of a small star. Krex and his 50,000 warriors died instantly, their defiance and bravery meaning nothing against the laws of physics weaponized by human ingenuity. It took 4 hours to secure the Ketheric home system, 4 hours to dismantle defenses that were supposed to hold for months. The Syndicate's military leadership, watching from their bunkers, finally understood the scope of their mistake. Overlord Threx, already on his personal dreadnought and fleeing the system, received constant updates on the disaster. His empire was falling apart. His fleet was destroyed. His defenses were gone. Everything he had built over 30 years of ruthless conquest was being torn down in a single day. "Where is the human hostage?" he demanded. "We need to trade him. Offer him back to them. Make them stop." His second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Vresh, shook his head. "My lord, we have been trying to contact them for hours. They do not respond. They are not here to negotiate. They are here to destroy us. Then we run," Threx said. "We run until they stop chasing us." But running required time, and time was something the Syndicate no longer had. Deep in the bowels of Ketheric Prime Station, Marcus Chen sat in his cell and felt the vibrations of distant explosions through the walls. The station was under attack, or at least that was his guess. He had lost track of time hours ago, lost in the monotony of imprisonment and the growing sounds of chaos outside. Then the door to his cell opened. Marcus looked up, expecting guards or maybe Threx himself. Instead, he saw something that made his heart skip. Humans. 3 of them dressed in armor so black it seemed to absorb light. They moved with the fluid grace of professional soldiers, weapons ready, visors hiding their faces. "Captain Marcus Chen?" the lead soldier asked, his voice calm despite the alarm klaxons blaring throughout the station. "Yes," Marcus said, standing up on shaky legs. "Yes, that is me. Night Stalker Team 7. We are here to take you home, sir. Are you injured?" Marcus shook his head. "No, they hit me a few times, but nothing serious." "How did you get in here?" "This station has defenses, shields, security systems." The soldier's tone carried a hint of dark humor. "Yes, sir, it did. Past tense. We bypassed the shields with a phase array that your tax dollars helped develop. The security systems were good, but our AI was better. As for the defenses, well, the fleet is handling those. We need to move, sir." "Can you walk?" "I can run if I have to," Marcus said. "Good. Stay between us, keep your head down, and do exactly what we say. We have a shuttle waiting." They moved through the station like ghosts, encountering no resistance. Later, Marcus would learn that the Night Stalkers had infiltrated the station using stealth technology that bent light and fooled sensors. They had walked past dozens of guards who never knew they were there. By the time anyone realized humans were inside, Marcus was already gone. The extraction took 12 minutes from door breach to shuttle launch. Marcus sat in the shuttle's passenger bay, strapped in and struggling to process what was happening. Through the viewport, he could see the Terran war fleet in all its terrible glory. Thousands of ships all around the station, all bristling with weapons. Dear God, Marcus whispered. They actually did it. They brought the entire fleet. Not the entire fleet, sir. One of the Night Stalkers corrected. This is about 60%. The rest are securing our territory and protecting Earth. But yes, sir, we came for you. We came for all of you, but right now you are the only one who needed rescuing. The shuttle docked with the HTMS Retribution, and Marcus was escorted to the medical bay. Doctors checked him over, treated his minor injuries, and declared him healthy. Then they brought him to the bridge. Admiral Okonkwo was waiting. She was a tall woman with gray hair cut military short and eyes that had seen too much. She looked at Marcus with an expression that was part relief and part something else. Determination, maybe, or sorrow. Captain Chen, she said, extending her hand. Welcome aboard. I am Admiral Sarah Okonkwo, commander of the Terran Warfleet. Marcus shook her hand, feeling dazed. Admiral, I do not know what to say. Thank you. Thank you for coming for me. We came for you, Okonkwo agreed. But we are not done yet. Come look at the display. She gestured to the main view screen, which showed a tactical map of Syndicate space. Red markers indicated Syndicate assets. As Marcus watched, those red markers began to disappear one by one, replaced by gray markers indicating destroyed targets. What are you doing? Marcus asked, though he already knew. We are eliminating the Syndicate, Okonkwo said simply. Every military asset, every stronghold, every base, every ship. We are giving civilians time to evacuate, but the Syndicate itself will cease to exist. We are doing this because of what they did to you, but more importantly, we are doing this so that no one ever tries it again. Marcus felt sick. Admiral, I am just one person. I am not worth this. I am not worth a war. Okonkwo turned to face him fully. Captain Chen, do you know how many humans have been taken hostage since we joined the Galactic Council? Marcus shook his head. None, Okonkwo said. Not one in 200 years. Do you know why? Because 70 years ago, a pirate fleet made the mistake of taking human hostages. Earth responded by destroying that pirate fleet so completely that the galaxy learned a lesson. For 70 years that lesson held. Until now. Until the Syndicate decided that enough time had passed, that maybe humans had gone soft, that maybe they could take one of us and nothing would happen. She leaned closer. We are not doing this just for you, Captain. We are doing this for every human who will never be taken hostage after today. We are doing this so that our children and grandchildren can travel the galaxy safely. We are doing this because some lessons have to be taught in fire. Marcus looked at the tactical display again, watching the red markers disappear. How many people are going to die? We are doing everything we can to minimize civilian casualties, Okonkwo said. Every strike is preceded by evacuation warnings. We are not targeting residential areas. We are not using weapons of mass destruction. But yes, people will die. Syndicate military personnel. People who chose to be part of an organization that profits from suffering. I will not apologize for that. On the view screen, a massive Syndicate fortress station exploded in a bloom of fire and debris. The Syndicate has controlled 47 sectors for 3 generations, Okonkwo continued. In that time, they have enslaved millions. They have killed anyone who opposed them. They have built an empire on fear and violence. The Galactic Council did nothing because the Syndicate operated in lawless space beyond Council authority. We are doing what the Council should have done decades ago. Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to say that there must be another way, but he could not find the words. He had seen what the Syndicate was. He had been their prisoner. He knew what kind of people ran that organization. What about Overlord Threx? Marcus asked. He is running, Okonkwo said. We are tracking his ship. He will not escape. As if on cue, the tactical officer spoke up. Admiral, we have a location on Threx's dreadnought. It is at the edge of the system preparing to jump to FTL. Send the destroyer squadron, Okonkwo ordered. I want him stopped before he can escape. Yes, Admiral. 3 human destroyers broke from the fleet formation and accelerated toward the edge of the system. They moved faster than should have been possible, crossing the distance in minutes rather than hours. Threx's dreadnought, massive and powerful, opened fire on them with every weapon it had. The destroyers barely slowed down. They surrounded the dreadnought and then they waited. The human fleet commander opened a channel. Overlord Threx, you are ordered to surrender your vessel and submit to arrest. Threx's response was immediate and desperate. I surrender. I will tell you everything. The names of my associates, the location of hidden bases, trade routes, contacts. I have information worth millions. I can help you destroy what remains of the syndicate. There was a pause on the human channel. Then the destroyer commander spoke again, his voice cold. We do not want your surrender. The 3 destroyers fired simultaneously. Disruption lances hit the dreadnought from 3 different angles, and the ship that had been Threx's pride and power simply ceased to exist. The explosion lit up space like a brief new star. No trial, no imprisonment, no second chances, just ash. Marcus turned away from the view screen. He felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that he was safe, horror at the destruction being carried out in his name, and underneath it all a growing understanding of what humanity truly was. They were not the peaceful traders the galaxy thought they knew. They were not the harmless engineers who fixed broken systems and negotiated favorable deals. Those things were true, but they were only part of the truth. Humanity was a species that valued peace but was willing to wage war when necessary. They were a species that preferred negotiation, but would not negotiate when it came to the safety of their own people. They were a species that could be kind and generous and helpful, right up until you crossed the one line they had drawn in the stars. Do not touch humanity. Do not take their people. Do not test their resolve. The galaxy was learning that lesson again, written in fire and blood in the empty void where the syndicate used to be. How long until it is over? Marcus asked quietly. Okonkwo checked her displays. At the current pace, approximately 72 hours. 3 days to dismantle an empire that took 30 years to build. After that, we will return to Earth. You will see your daughter again, Captain Chen. Marcus nodded, not trusting himself to speak. 3 days. 3 days to change the galaxy forever. 3 days to prove that humanity's mercy was real. But so was their capacity for overwhelming violence. 3 days to teach a lesson that would echo for centuries. Outside the ship, the war continued. Human vessels moved from system to system, target to target, executing Operation Ashfall with mechanical precision. The Syndicate fought back where they could, but every battle ended the same way. Human victory, Syndicate destruction. The galaxy was watching, and the galaxy was learning. Some species were horrified. Some were impressed. Some began to wonder what other secrets humanity had kept hidden during their 200 years of peaceful coexistence. But all of them learned the same lesson. You do not touch humanity. Not even one of them, not ever. Because if you do, they will turn your entire empire to ash, and they will not lose a single night's sleep over it. The medical bay of the HTMS Retribution was quiet, except for the steady hum of monitoring equipment. Marcus Chen sat on the edge of a medical bed, staring at a datapad that showed the tactical overview of Operation Ashfall. The screen displayed sector after sector, each one marked with status updates. Station destroyed, shipyard obliterated, fortress neutralized, military installation eliminated. The list went on and on, a catalog of destruction so comprehensive that it took Marcus's breath away. In 72 hours, the Terran Warfleet had systematically dismantled everything the Ketheric Syndicate had built over 3 generations. 47 sectors, once controlled by criminals and slavers, were now empty of Syndicate presence. You should rest, Dr. Amara Singh said, approaching with a concerned expression. She was the ship's chief medical officer, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and steady hands. You have been through a traumatic experience. Your body needs sleep. I cannot sleep, Marcus said, not looking up from the pad. Every time I close my eyes, I see the numbers. 47 stations, 12 shipyards, 8 fortress worlds. How many people died, Doctor? Singh sat down beside him. The official count is approximately 40,000. Almost all military personnel who refused to evacuate when warned. Civilian casualties were minimal, maybe 300, mostly from evacuation accidents that we could not prevent. It could have been much worse. 40,000, Marcus repeated. 40,000 people are dead because someone decided to kidnap me. How am I supposed to live with that? You are not responsible for what the Syndicate did, Singh said firmly. And you are not responsible for Earth's response. The Syndicate chose to take you hostage. Earth chose to respond with overwhelming force. Those were their decisions, not yours. Marcus finally looked at her. But it was for me. All of this death and destruction, it was to save one unimportant cargo hauler. No, Admiral Okonkwo said, entering the medical bay. She had been listening from the doorway. It was not just for you, Captain Chen. How many times do I have to explain this? This was about principle. This was about ensuring that no one ever tries this again. She walked over and stood in front of Marcus, her expression hard but not unkind. Do you know how many people the Ketheric Syndicate enslaved over the last 30 years? Okonkwo asked. According to the data we recovered from their systems, they took over 2 million people from hundreds of different species. They sold them, worked them to death, and disposed of them when they were no longer useful. Do you know how many the Galactic Council rescued? None. 0. The Council passed resolutions and made speeches, but they did nothing. She gestured to the data pad in Marcus's hands. We did something. We freed those slaves. We dismantled an empire built on suffering. And yes, we did it because they took you, but the result is the same. 2 million people will not die as slaves. Millions more will not be taken in the future. Is that not worth something? Marcus wanted to argue, but he could not deny the logic. The Syndicate had been a cancer on the galaxy, and the Galactic Council had been too cautious or too corrupt to remove it. Earth had done what needed to be done, even if the method was brutal. I still wish there had been another way, Marcus said quietly. So do I, Okonkwo replied, surprising him with her honesty. I have been a military officer for 40 years, and I have never fired a shot in anger until 3 days ago. I joined the Solar Defense Force hoping I would never have to use the weapons we built. But hoping is not the same as being unprepared. The galaxy needed to remember what humanity is capable of when pushed. Now they know. She turned to leave, then paused. Get some rest, Captain. In 12 hours we will be back in Earth orbit. Your daughter is waiting to see you. Sarah, his daughter. The thought of seeing her again gave Marcus a reason to stop dwelling on the horror of the last few days. He set down the data pad and lay back on the medical bed, closing his eyes and trying to find sleep. Across the galaxy on Unity Station, the Galactic Council was in chaos. Ambassador Koresh of the Altarian Concordate stood before the assembled delegates, trying to maintain order in a chamber that seemed on the verge of dissolving into violence. Representatives were shouting at each other, making accusations, demanding action that no one could actually take. Order, Koresh called out. We must have order. The Vryn delegate, normally calm and logical, was pulsing an angry red. The humans have committed an act of aggression unprecedented in Council history. 47 sectors, 40,000 dead. They did not seek Council approval. They did not attempt diplomatic solutions. They simply attacked. They attacked a criminal organization, countered the Altarian military observer. The Ketheric Syndicate was not a council member. They operated outside galactic law. They were kidnappers, slavers, and murderers. Are we really going to defend them? We are not defending the Syndicate, the Centauri representative said, his antennae quivering with agitation. We are condemning the disproportionate response. One hostage does not justify the destruction of 47 sectors. Then what would justify it? A new voice asked. All eyes turned to the human section of the council chamber. Ambassador James Okafor was finally present, sitting calmly in his seat as if he had not been absent for 2 weeks. He looked relaxed, almost casual, which made his presence even more disturbing given the circumstances. Ambassador Okafor, Koresh said carefully, we are pleased you could join us. We have many questions about Earth's recent actions. I am sure you do, Okafor replied. But before you ask them, let me ask you something. How many council resolutions were passed regarding the Ketheric Syndicate? How many times did this council condemn their actions, their slavery, their piracy, their murders? And how many times did the council actually do something about it? Silence fell over the chamber. I will tell you, Okafor continued. In the last 30 years, the council passed 43 resolutions condemning the syndicate. 43 strongly worded documents that accomplished exactly nothing. The syndicate continued to operate because the council lacked the will to stop them. Well, Earth had the will. We did what you could not or would not do. The Vryn delegate pulsed angrily. You did not have the authority to take unilateral military action in council space. You are correct, Okafor agreed. We did not have the authority. That is why, effective immediately, Earth withdraws from the Galactic Council. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted in a dozen different languages. Some demanded explanations. Others made threats. Koresh felt her heart sink. This was the worst possible outcome. Ambassador Okafor, she said, trying to project calm she did not feel. Please reconsider. Earth has been a valued member of this council for 200 years. Surely we can find a diplomatic solution. Okafor stood and the chamber gradually quieted. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly to every corner of the room. For 200 years, humanity has participated in this council in good faith. We have followed your rules. We have respected your authority. We have contributed to peacekeeping operations, humanitarian missions, and scientific cooperation. We asked only one thing in return, that our citizens be protected under council law. You failed. He paused, letting the words sink in. When the syndicate took Captain Marcus Chen, we waited to see what the council would do. We waited 10 days. The council did nothing. You debated. You formed committees. You passed emergency resolutions that had no teeth and no enforcement. Meanwhile, a human citizen was held hostage by criminals, and the council's response was bureaucratic paralysis. Okafor's expression hardened. We will not make that mistake again. Humanity no longer requires council permission to defend our people. We no longer seek council approval for our actions. We withdraw from this body, effective immediately. We will maintain trade relationships with individual species who wish to trade with us, but we will no longer participate in collective governance. You cannot simply withdraw, the Centauri delegate protested. There are treaties, agreements, obligations, all of which Earth will honor with individual species on a bilateral basis, Okafor replied. But our membership in this council is over. We gave you 200 years to prove that collective security meant something. You proved it does not. Kiresh stepped forward. Ambassador, please. If Earth withdraws, it will destabilize the entire galactic order. Other species will follow. The council could collapse. Then perhaps it should, Okafor said bluntly. A council that cannot protect its members from kidnappers and slavers is not a council worth preserving. If our withdrawal causes other species to question their membership, then those are questions they should be asking. He walked toward the exit, then turned back one final time. I am authorized to deliver one more message from Earth. This is not a threat. This is a statement of fact. Humanity wants to be left alone. We do not want your territory. We do not want your resources. We want only to live in peace in our own space. But if any species, any organization, or any individual takes action against a human citizen, our response will be swift and absolute. We will not negotiate. We will not pay ransoms. We will eliminate the threat completely. What happened to the Ketheric Syndicate will happen to anyone who tests our resolve. He paused at the doorway. We hope it never comes to that. We truly do. But hope is not a strategy. Being prepared is. Humanity is prepared. I suggest the rest of you prepare as well. Then he was gone, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. On the HTMS Retribution, Admiral Okonkwo received word of Okafor's speech and allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 of Earth's new doctrine was complete. Show overwhelming force. Make the message clear. Withdraw from ineffective institutions. Now came the harder part. Maintaining the peace without looking weak. Admiral, her communications officer said, we are receiving a transmission from the Ketheric homeworld. It is from the new provisional government. Put it through, Okonkwo ordered. A Ketheric appeared on the screen. But this one looked different from the syndicate members she had been dealing with. This one wore simple civilian clothing and looked exhausted. I am Council Speaker Vren, the Ketheric said. I lead the provisional government that is formed in the wake of the syndicate's collapse. On behalf of the Ketheric people, I wish to convey several messages. Okonkwo listened carefully. First, we thank you for freeing us from the syndicate's rule, Vren continued. They were criminals who seized power 3 generations ago and held our people hostage. We have lived under their tyranny for decades, unable to overthrow them ourselves. Your actions, while terrifying in their scope, have liberated us. That was not what Okonkwo had expected to hear. Second, we mourn the dead on both sides. Many Ketheric military personnel died in your assault. And while many of them were loyal to the syndicate, some were simply following orders or protecting their families. We ask that you acknowledge their deaths with respect. We do, Okonkwo said. Every life lost in combat is a tragedy, regardless of which side they fought for. We gave warnings and opportunities to evacuate. Those who died made their own choices, but we do not take their deaths lightly. Vren nodded. Third, we wish to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. Not as enemies, but as a species freed from criminal rule and hoping to rebuild. We have no desire for revenge or retaliation. We only want peace and the chance to create a better government than the one the syndicate provided. Okonkwo considered this carefully. Earth is willing to open diplomatic channels with a legitimate Ketheric government. However, we will be watching carefully. If your new government engages in the same criminal activities as the Syndicate, our response will be the same. Understood, Vren said. We have no intention of repeating the Syndicate's mistakes. We have seen what happens when you threaten humanity. It is a lesson we will not forget. The transmission ended and Okonkwo leaned back in her command chair. That was one crisis potentially averted, but there would be others. Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Council would have ripple effects across the entire galaxy. Some species would see it as an opportunity, others would see it as a threat. Admiral, her tactical officer said, long-range sensors are detecting movement in the Vrin sectors. Military buildup looks like. They are mobilizing their fleet. Are they moving toward us? Okonkwo asked. No, ma'am. They appear to be fortifying their own territory. Defensive posture. They are afraid, Okonkwo said quietly. They are afraid we might decide they are the next threat. Are we? The tactical officer asked. No, Okonkwo said firmly. But we need them to believe we could be. Fear will keep them from testing us. Fear will keep our people safe. It was a cold calculation, but Okonkwo had learned long ago that peace was not maintained through kindness alone. It was maintained through a careful balance of cooperation and the credible threat of overwhelming force. Humanity had been kind for 200 years. Now they were showing the galaxy that kindness had limits. On Earth, in a university dormitory in Geneva, Sarah Chen received the message she had been waiting for. Her father was alive. He was coming home. She collapsed into her roommate's arms and cried, releasing 2 weeks of fear and anxiety. Her father, her only remaining family, had been taken by criminals. For days she had watched the news reports with growing horror as Earth mobilized for war. She had been terrified that her father would be killed, that she would lose him the same way she had lost her mother. But he was safe. He was coming home. The news feeds were full of debates about Earth's response. Some people called it heroic. Others called it excessive. Politicians argued about whether the government had done the right thing. Philosophers debated the ethics of proportional response. Sarah did not care about any of that. Her father was alive and he was coming home. That was all that mattered to her. But in the quiet moments when she was alone with her thoughts, she wondered about the cost. She wondered about the 40,000 people who had died. She wondered about the Ketheric families who lost loved ones. She wondered if her father would ever be the same after watching an empire burn in his name. These were questions without easy answers, questions that would haunt humanity for generations. But they were questions for another day. For now, Sarah Chen prepared to welcome her father home, while the galaxy watched and learned that humanity's patience had limits, and crossing those limits came with a price measured in ash and empty stars. 1 month after the Ketheric incident, as historians were already calling it, Marcus Chen stood in front of a memorial on Earth. The memorial was simple, just a black granite wall with names carved into the stone. These were not the names of human casualties, for there had been none. These were the names of the 317 Ketheric civilians who had died during the evacuation chaos, crushed in stampeding crowds or killed in accidents as millions fled from Earth's bombardments. The Terran government had erected this memorial in Geneva, at the base of what used to be the Galactic Council's Earth Embassy. The building was empty now, windows dark, flags removed. But the memorial remained, a reminder that even righteous actions came with costs. Marcus reached out and touched one of the names. Crash infant, age 2 months. A child who never had a chance to grow up because her parents panicked in an evacuation, and she was lost in the chaos. She had not been killed by human weapons, but she was dead because of human actions nonetheless. You come here often, Admiral Okonkwo said, walking up beside him. She was in civilian clothes today, a rare sight. Her military uniform remained in her quarters most days now that the war was over. Every day, Marcus admitted. I read the names. I try to remember that they were real people, not just numbers in a report. They were real, Okonkwo agreed. She looked at the wall for a long moment. I authorized the memorial. Some people in government thought it was inappropriate, that it made us look weak or apologetic. I disagreed. We did what we had to do, but we should never forget what it cost. Marcus turned to face her. Was it worth it, Admiral? All of this destruction, all of these deaths, was it worth it to save one cargo hauler? Okonkwo was quiet for a while before answering. Ask me again in 50 years. If no humans have been taken hostage in that time, if our people can travel the galaxy safely, if the lesson we taught actually took hold, then yes, it was worth it. If this happens again, if someone decides to test us again, then no, we failed. She gestured to the memorial. These people died because the Ketheric Syndicate chose to take you hostage, and because their own government could not protect them from the Syndicate's corruption. Their deaths are tragic, but they are not your responsibility. The Syndicate made the first move. We finished it. The galaxy sees us differently now, Marcus said. Yes, Okonkwo agreed. They do, is that a bad thing? Marcus did not have an answer. Across the galaxy, the changes were already visible. Human space had become a zone that other species approached with caution. Trade still happened, but only at designated neutral stations on the borders of human territory. No foreign military vessels were allowed within 10 light-years of human colonies. No foreign government sent ambassadors to Earth anymore because Earth had made it clear they would not receive them. Humanity had effectively isolated itself, drawing a line around its territory and daring anyone to cross it. Some species respected that boundary. The Altarians, ever diplomatic, maintained friendly trade relations and sent messages of understanding through back channels. The new Ketheric government, grateful for liberation from the Syndicate, signed a non-aggression pact and worked to rebuild their society along more peaceful lines. But other species saw humanity's isolation as weakness. The Vryn Collective, a powerful military empire, began making aggressive moves in neutral space, testing boundaries and pushing against human-claimed territories. They never directly attacked, but they made their presence known. And there were the pirates. Not as organized as the Syndicate had been, but still dangerous. Small groups who thought humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council meant they were vulnerable. These pirates learned quickly that isolation did not mean weakness. When a pirate gang attacked a human mining colony on the frontier, Earth's response was swift. A single destroyer arrived within hours, eliminated the pirates with brutal efficiency, and left without making contact with nearby systems. The message was clear. Human space was protected and violators would not be arrested or negotiated with. They would simply cease to exist. After a few such incidents, pirate attacks on human targets stopped entirely. Captain Marcus Chen returned to work 3 months after his rescue. He had been offered retirement with full benefits, a pension, and recognition as a hero. The Terran government wanted to use his story for propaganda purposes, to show the galaxy that Earth protected its citizens. Marcus had refused all of it. Instead, he bought a new cargo hauler with the insurance money from his destroyed ship. He named it the Second Chance and returned to hauling cargo across the galaxy. But this time, he only took contracts that involved humanitarian aid. Medical supplies, food shipments for famine-stricken colonies, educational materials for developing worlds. He became known in the frontier regions as the human who helped anyone who needed it, regardless of species. He charged minimal fees, just enough to cover fuel and maintenance. He delivered supplies to places other haulers refused to go. Dangerous systems and war-torn regions where profit was impossible but need was greatest. "Why do you do this?" a young Altarian dock worker asked him one day, watching as Marcus unloaded medical supplies for a refugee camp. "You are famous. You could charge premium rates. You could live in luxury." Marcus smiled sadly. "Because the galaxy burned for me. 40,000 people died because someone took me hostage. The least I can do is prove that I was worth saving." Word of Marcus's work spread. Other human cargo haulers began following his example, taking on humanitarian missions and offering help to struggling colonies. It became a movement of sorts, humans trying to repair their reputation as warriors by showing they could also be helpers. But the fear remained. Marcus felt it every time he docked at a non-human station. The way other species looked at him, the way they stepped back when he approached, the way they spoke in hushed tones after he passed. He was not Marcus Chen, cargo hauler, anymore. He was Marcus Chen, the human the galaxy burned for. He was a symbol of Earth's power and Earth's willingness to use that power. One day, 6 months after his rescue, Marcus was making a supply run to a neutral trading station in the Viridian sector. It was routine work, exactly the kind of boring job he had always preferred. He delivered his cargo, collected his payment, and was preparing to depart when an alarm sounded. "Attention all vessels," the station's automated system announced. "Distress signal received. Civilian transport under attack by pirates. Location, Sector 773. All vessels capable of rendering assistance, please respond." Marcus checked his navigation display. Sector 773 was only 2 light years away. His cargo hauler was not a military ship, but it had basic defensive weapons and decent engines. He could help, but the transport under attack was not human. It was Vryn, the same species whose military was currently making threatening moves near human space. Some humans had started calling them the next potential enemy. Marcus made his decision in seconds. He set course for Sector 773 and engaged his FTL drive. He dropped out of faster-than-light travel to find a scene of chaos. A Vryn civilian transport, unarmed and clearly designed for passenger service, was surrounded by 3 pirate vessels. The pirates were firing on the transport's engines, trying to disable it for boarding. The transport's shields were failing and escape pods were already launching into space. Marcus activated his communication system. "This is Captain Marcus Chen of Earth. I am here to help. Pirates, break off your attack immediately." The response was immediate. All 3 pirate ships stopped firing and turned toward Marcus's cargo hauler. For a moment, Marcus thought they were going to attack him. Then, without a word, all 3 pirate vessels activated their FTL drives and vanished. They had fled at the mention of his name. At the mention of Earth. Marcus sat in his pilot chair, stunned. He had not fired a single shot. He had not even charged his weapons. The pirates had simply heard Earth and run. The Vryn transport captain contacted him, her voice shaking. "Human vessel, this is Captain Varix of the passenger transport Crystalline Dream. Thank you." "Thank you so much. You saved over 300 lives today. Are you damaged?" Marcus asked, forcing himself to focus on practical matters. "Do you need assistance?" "Our engines are damaged but operational. We can make it to the nearest station. But please allow us to thank you properly. What is your name?" "Marcus Chen," he said, and heard the sharp intake of breath on the other end of the channel. "You are the Marcus Chen?" Varix asked. "The one from the Kethric incident?" "Yes," Marcus admitted. There was a long pause. "Then we owe you even more thanks. Without you, without what your species did, the Syndicate would still be enslaving people. My own cousin was freed from one of their labor camps. She is alive because of what Earth did." Marcus did not know what to say to that. "The galaxy is learning," Varix continued. "Slowly, but we are learning. Some species fear you, but others are grateful. You destroyed an evil that the Council was too weak to fight. That means something." After the communication ended, Marcus sat alone in his cockpit and thought about what had just happened. He had saved lives without firing a shot, simply by being human. The reputation Earth had built, the fear they had instilled, had protected innocent people today. Maybe Admiral Okonkwo had been right. Maybe the lesson was taking hold. On Earth, in the headquarters of the Solar Defense Force, Admiral Okonkwo received daily reports on galactic activity. She monitored ship movements, tracked potential threats, and maintained Earth's defensive posture. It was exhausting work, made more difficult by humanity's isolation. But she also received other kinds of reports. Reports of human cargo haulers helping alien colonies. Reports of human engineers volunteering to repair damaged stations. Reports of human doctors traveling to plague-stricken worlds to offer medical aid. And she received reports of incidents like Marcus Chen's encounter in Sector 773, where human presence alone was enough to deter violence. "The doctrine is working," her chief of staff observed, looking at the compiled data. "Pirate attacks on human targets are down 98%. Hostage-taking attempts are 0. Criminal organizations are avoiding human space entirely." "And the cost?" Okonkwo asked. "We are isolated," the chief of staff admitted. "Trade is down 40% compared to pre-incident levels. Tourism has collapsed. Scientific cooperation with other species is minimal. We have security, but we have lost connection." Okonkwo nodded slowly. That was the price they had chosen to pay. Safety through isolation, security through fear. It was effective, but it was also lonely. "There is something else," her chief of staff said, bringing up a new report. "We are seeing an interesting pattern. Several smaller species have been approaching our border stations requesting protection agreements. They are not asking to join any alliance. They are asking if Earth would be willing to defend them if attacked. They want us to be their protectors, Okonkwo said. Yes, ma'am. They have seen what we did to the Syndicate. They figure if they have Earth watching their backs, no one will dare attack them. Okonkwo considered this carefully. It was an opportunity, but also a risk. If Earth started protecting other species, it could lead to entanglements, to obligations, to the kind of galactic politics they had just withdrawn from. But it could also be a way to show that humanity was more than just destructive force, that they could use their power for good. Tell them we will consider protection agreements on a case-by-case basis, Okonkwo decided. No formal alliances, no treaty obligations. But if a species is genuinely threatened and comes to us for help, we will evaluate their situation. We will not be the galaxy's police force, but we can be its protector when the need is genuine. It was a small step, but it was something. 5 years after the Ketherick incident, historians and political scientists were still debating its impact. Universities across the galaxy taught courses analyzing Earth's response. Military academies studied the tactics and strategy. Diplomatic schools examined the breakdown of council authority and the rise of unilateral action. But the most important impact was the one that could not be easily measured. The galaxy had learned that humanity, for all their peaceful demeanor and trading culture, had limits. They had learned that crossing those limits came with consequences so severe that prevention was the only rational choice. In those 5 years, not a single human had been taken hostage. Not one. Pirate attacks on human vessels had effectively ceased. Criminal organizations avoided human space as if it were radioactive. Even aggressive military powers thought twice before conducting operations near human territory. The lesson had been learned. The price had been paid. The galaxy had changed. Marcus Chen continued his work, hauling supplies and helping those in need. He never sought recognition and avoided media attention whenever possible. But his reputation grew anyway. The human who the galaxy burned for, now spending his life proving he was worth it. His daughter Sarah graduated medical school and joined Doctors Without Borders, the galactic humanitarian organization. She spent her time traveling to disaster zones and war-torn regions, saving lives regardless of species. When asked why she chose such dangerous work, she always gave the same answer. My father is alive because humanity valued one life enough to go to war. I honor that by showing that every life has value. 10 years after the incident, the Galactic Council sent a formal request to Earth. They wanted humanity to return, to participate in galactic governance again. They promised reforms, better security measures, and actual enforcement of Council resolutions. Earth's response was polite but firm. No. We have learned that we cannot rely on collective security, Ambassador Okafor wrote in his response. We have learned that when it truly matters, we stand alone. This is not a rejection of cooperation or friendship with individual species. This is simply an acknowledgement that our safety is our responsibility, and ours alone. The Council accepted the response with disappointment but understanding. Earth had drawn its line and it would not cross back. 20 years after the incident, Marcus Chen was an old man. His hair had gone completely gray and his body was starting to feel the weight of years spent in zero gravity. He was considering retirement, thinking about spending his final years on Earth with his daughter and her children. But he took one more job. A colony on the frontier, struggling with food shortages, needed supplies. It was dangerous territory, disputed space where several factions fought for control. No other hauler would take the contract. Marcus took it. He delivered the supplies without incident, but on his return journey, his ship's sensors picked up something concerning. A small craft drifting without power. No distress signal, but clear signs of life support failure. Marcus changed course to investigate. As he approached, he identified the craft as a small personal yacht, expensive and well-made. Someone important was aboard, or at least someone wealthy. He docked with the yacht and cycled through the airlock. Inside, he found a single occupant, unconscious but alive. The being was Vryn, crystalline and beautiful, their internal light pulsing weakly. Marcus carried them back to his ship, placed them in his medical bay, and administered emergency aid. It took 3 hours of work, but eventually, the Vryn's vital signs stabilized. They would survive. When the Vryn woke, they stared at Marcus in confusion and fear. "You are human," they said weakly. "Yes." Marcus agreed. I found your ship drifting. Your life support was failing. You are safe now. Why did you help me? The Vryn asked. My people and yours, we are not friends. Our governments barely speak to each other. Marcus smiled gently. I did not save a Vryn government official. I saved a person. That is what humans do. We protect our own, yes, but we also help those who need it. Both things can be true. The Vryn's internal light pulsed in a pattern that Marcus had learned meant gratitude. I am Ambassador Krill. I serve in the Vryn Diplomatic Corps. I was traveling to a negotiation when my ship malfunctioned. If you had not found me, I would have died. Well, you did not die, Marcus said practically. I am taking you to the nearest station where you can get proper medical care and contact your people. You will be fine. Krill studied Marcus for a long moment. You are Marcus Chen, the one from the stories. I am just a cargo hauler, Marcus said tiredly. The stories make me into something I am not. No, Krill said firmly. The stories make you into a symbol. But I see the reality. You are a person who helps others regardless of who they are. That is more valuable than any symbol. 3 days later, when Marcus delivered Ambassador Krill to the Vryn diplomatic station, he was met with a level of ceremony that made him deeply uncomfortable. Vryn officials thanked him profusely. They offered rewards, honors, and trade agreements. Marcus refused them all. He just wanted to go home. But as he departed the station, he received one final communication from Krill. Captain Chen, I want you to know something. When I return to my government, I will tell them what happened. I will tell them that humanity saved one of ours, asking nothing in return. I will tell them that the species that burned a galaxy for one of their own also saves the lives of strangers. Perhaps it will help our peoples understand each other better. I hope so, Marcus said sincerely. 50 years after the Ketheric incident, Marcus Chen died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 103. He was surrounded by family, having lived long enough to see his grandchildren grow into adults and start families of their own. His funeral was a small, private affair. He had requested no military honors, no public ceremonies, no grand memorials. Just family and friends remembering a man who had lived a quiet life doing good work. But the galaxy remembered him differently. In military academies across known space, his name was taught in the first week of officer training. Every cadet, regardless of species, learned about Marcus Chen and the Ketheric incident. They learned about what happened when you took a human hostage. They learned about proportional response versus absolute response. They learned about deterrence through overwhelming force. But they also learned about what Marcus Chen did after his rescue. They learned about his humanitarian work, his dedication to helping others, and his quiet example of using power responsibly. The lesson was complete. Humanity could destroy empires, but they could also build bridges. They could wage total war, but they could also offer total peace. They were not monsters, but they were not victims either. They were something more complex, more nuanced, and more dangerous precisely because they understood both sides of that equation. On Earth, in the Terran government archives, a classified document was filed and sealed for future generations. It was titled The Chen Doctrine, Principles of Human Foreign Policy in the Post-Council Era. The document outlined Earth's position clearly. Humanity seeks peace, but prepares for war. We offer friendship, but maintain boundaries. We trade freely, but defend absolutely. We help those in need, but punish those who threaten us. We are not the galaxy's enemy, but we are no longer its dependent. We stand alone, ready to stand with others, but never again subordinate to those who cannot or will not protect us. This is the lesson of Marcus Chen. This is the price we paid and the promise we keep. Touch one of us and face all of us. Respect all of us and find friends for life. This is humanity's choice. The galaxy must make its own. 100 years after the incident, a new generation of humans explored the galaxy. They found a universe that remembered their grandparents' actions. They found species that feared them, species that respected them, and species that wanted to learn from them. And they found to their surprise that the galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in centuries. Not because humanity policed it, but because humanity had proven that peace was not weakness, that kindness had limits, and that those who preyed on the innocent would face consequences so absolute that prevention was the only rational choice. The Ketheric incident passed from current events into history, from history into legend. But the lesson remained, carved into the collective memory of galactic civilization like words on a memorial wall. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Never mistake peace for pacifism, and never ever take a human hostage. Because if you do, humanity will turn your empire to ash. Not out of cruelty, but out of certainty. The certainty that it will never happen again. This was the price of one. One human, one life, one moment that changed everything. And in the end, it was a price the galaxy decided was worth paying to learn what humanity truly was. A species that valued every individual life enough to go to war for it, but wise enough to spend the peace proving that war was the last resort, not the first choice. The stars shone on and humanity sailed among them, neither conqueror nor conquered, but something the galaxy had rarely seen before. A species that was both gentle and terrible, kind and unforgiving, peaceful and unstoppable. They were human, and the galaxy would never forget it.